Hello and welcome to another episode of Alex's Afternoon Art Show. Today we're continuing our trend of weird Marvel Nemesis drawings for some reason, because we've got to keep this nonsense going. And today we're probably going with one of the worst designs in the game, being Elektra. Alright, so as per usual, I have done the base sketch beforehand, and so the pose for this one, I've decided to go with something kind of appropriate for the character's design in this, being a bit more overt, but yeah, it's a case of where this is actually kind of based on one of the pieces of art for the game. It's like loosely based off of one of the PSP bits of art. And so, for her for that it's more of a side angle, but this it's more back view. But, I suppose we will get into it, and I'll kind of get into my gripes on this design as we're rolling. But, yeah. So, we'll start here with the hair, because the hair's going to take a minute, I think. It's funny, I think I actually skimped a little bit on the detail when it came to this base sketch, so this might be a little bit more tricky for me in terms of trying to remember what I wanted to do with this, because as I say, I think I may have skimped a little bit on the details, which just simply means I'm going to have a little bit more work to do on fixing certain things, but Okay, right. Again, this is a bit tricky here. I'm not used to working with kind of odd angles. Oh, I say I do them every now and then, but I mean, it's a case of where I don't normally work with kind of angles like this, I suppose. And as well, when it comes to very straight hair, it's kind of tricky as well, because this is the thing, you're kind of usually, when you're drawing hair, you're trying to work in some kind of interesting flow to the hair, and that's often the challenge, but here we're kind of fighting that a little bit, fighting that kind of instinct, because it's supposed to be very straight here. Something which I guess I'll touch on briefly a little bit here while I'm at it is whenever you're doing like the ends of hair, it doesn't really matter how straight the hair is, it tends to kind of get a little bit messy and weird, and you can just kind of throw whatever. Like even, like as I say here, like doing these lines on top of lines will kind of add to a more, I guess, real, I don't know, but kind of a bit more accurate, I guess, representation of how kind of hair tends to flay out whenever it reaches the end. Again, it does look messy, but this is the thing, the ends will be messy, but then the rest can be straight and fine. So this is the thing. This is your kind of loopholes to get some more interesting stuff going on, I find, at least. You'll have to excuse my silence for this length of time here. The reason for it is because whenever I do hair, that's my few kinds of things of where I get to kind of go a little bit zen and focus to a degree. Alright, I guess the fun is over now. Done with the hair. Now we have to get into this miserable design, because Jesus Christ, this is such terrible design. They had no idea what they were doing. I mean, they knew exactly what they were doing. Let me rephrase that, but I mean, like, geez, just some of this it's just embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. I say some of it, most of it, all of it. It's all embarrassing. Because I mean, like, alright, we've got Don't know really where to start here. I think we'll probably start with this arm actually. But yeah, I'm just trying to be conscious of what is supposed to be visual based on the design here. So something which I guess you should be able to see is you'd be able to see this. She's got this, like, I don't even know what the hell this is supposed to be, but she's just got these random bits on her which have spikes on them for some reason. I don't know why. It's just such a bizarre design in every respect. I don't know what the hell was going on. Like, with certain elements you know exactly what they're thinking, but I mean with elements like the random spike stuff, I don't know what that was even supposed to be. Like, it's a case of where I guess this, I just don't know. I just don't understand, and that is what's just kind of odd to me, is that it's just kind of, I don't know what it's supposed to be at all. With so much of this design is just like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand what they were trying to do here. I'm gonna need to be very kind of careful about what I'm doing with some of this stuff, because I need to start erasing bits of this off. I need to make sure I don't lose anything. God forbid. God forbid I lose some of the random unexplained spikes that are on this design for some reason. How many are there? There's 4. There's 4 spikes. For some reason. I'll just throw them all on and then I'll erase afterwards. Good God. Good God. It's times like these why I wonder why I decided to do this. Why I made the choice to do this Marvel Nemesis nonsense, because it's all bad. Every element sucks. None of it works. And it's no more obvious than whenever I'm here at this moment having to draw this bloody Elektra design. But it's gonna be a nightmare whenever I get to Storm, because she's even worse somehow. I think based on my base here, her hips might be too wide, but I don't know. That's not something I'm gonna bother fixing, I think. We'll get to that, I guess. Because there's so much of this design which just has so much, like, this design is one of those cases of where it's filled with nothing, but it's also filled with a bunch of random crap. Like here we're gonna get to her wrist guards, which also have spikes on them for some reason. Because again, I guess spikes were the design choice of the time. Again, it was 2005, so I mean, that type of stuff was in, but now we've got this kind of like cross-stitched design here going on across the wrists, and that's what's keeping the wrist guard on. And it just seemed impractical to me to have something like that. And it's like, imagine you're getting ready to do your superheroing or your murdering or whatever it is that these characters do, and you have to spend like half an hour wrapping your wrists so you can put this bloody thing on. And you have to do it properly as well, because you can screw it up. You got to spend another like 40 minutes undoing it so that you can restart. Draw on her elbow. Alright. See, again, I'm trying to be conscious of that little trapping I've talked about before, of where you have to make sure you don't add too many lines, because then characters will look a bit strange. They'll look older than they're supposed to, or they'll just kind of have a bit of an odd look to them sometimes, which isn't what you want. You want them to look, right. So you want them to look in the way that, you initially intended. So it's a case where it can be a bit odd whenever they end up looking a bit strange. So actually there should be like a little line there for the wrist. Yeah, right, may as well do the other hand now as well. Which means, yeah, you'll be able to see this is, the wrist is kind of here, so again, more of this kind of cross-stitched design, or cross whatever this is supposed to be, cross-wrapped design, which is, yeah, highly impractical, as I've said a few times now. It's a bit of an odd hand position, which I had to kind of construct myself. The reference image obviously wouldn't have had that, but yeah, it's just kind of, these are the things you just gotta kind of work with when you're doing stuff like this, when you're doing these kind of odd hand positions. It's gonna be rare that you'll find reference with them. Like, I mean, again, it's a very kind of specific position. I mean, you could, if you've got the means, you could just take a picture of it of yourself doing the things if you can't find an image. If you want to use reference that way, but sometimes it could just be a bit more time effective just to try and figure it out. Sometimes it can end up taking longer to do that though, so I just suppose that's something to be aware of when you're doing this type of thing, when you're trying to pluck something odd and very particular from your mind. Said that a bit weirdly. Sometimes like these, you make use of Photoshop's easier elements just to kind of speed yourself up, because whenever you're trying to figure out something like this, like a sharp blade or something like that, it should be straight, so trying to just figure it out on your own will kind of just hamper the process sometimes. So yeah, the little tools that Photoshop has at its disposal just can help you greatly whenever you're trying to do this stuff. And now I'm trying to do some mental gymnastics, because in none of the reference I have there's a back pose, so it's a case of where I'm trying to adapt some of these other things to try and figure out where things would be, because yeah, naturally, since this was a design that was obviously made by men, let's just throw that out there. Rather obvious. She's naturally wearing barely anything, as I said in the Let's Play. It's a Mortal Kombat design. It's a Mortal Kombat design from the 90s, where it was just nothing. They didn't try very hard to mask certain things. So it's a case of where, yeah, I'm trying to estimate where elements of this would be showing up. So based on the design, there should be a strap cutting over her shoulder, and then we'll just bring it down here like that. Alright, now this bloody bit. Now you're gonna draw the trouser line, because yeah, once again, very obviously designed by men, so it's a case of where revealing in a way that just doesn't make any sense. So it's a case of where stuff like trousers, oddly low, oddly low cut. So yeah, I do think I made her hips a little too wide, but oh well. I mean, it kind of fits, I suppose. It fits the nature of these things, or the nature of this specifically. I think her hips are definitely way too big. I'm gonna need to tone this down a touch. Just a touch. Pretty sure I made this a little, just a touch too big. Yeah, I even just brought it in a little bit there and it's already looking a little better. But yeah, I'll bring it in here as well. Bring it on this side too, a little bit. There we go, now it's looking a bit more proportionate. This is the thing, it's a case where it's fine for people to have like wide hips and stuff like this, but the thing that you don't want is it to look improportionate, because then it'll look weird. But if everything's in proportion, then there's no issue. Even if things are a little exaggerated, if they're in proportion, it looks fine. So it's just a case of where it won't draw your eye and everything like that. Because again, I've even talked about in the Thing one, creating intentional issues with proportion can draw your eye. So for example, like toning down the size of someone's head to make their body look bigger. You can do stuff like that if you want to create an intentional kind of disparity inside the proportion. If you want to intentionally kind of draw people's eye to a certain element. Like, certain things here maybe a little. That's fine. Yeah, now we've got the next bloody stupid element. Just yeah, again, frankly embarrassing. Of where, yep, there's obviously also the line that is visible. But yeah, I've actually toned it down a little bit unintentionally. I didn't actually mean to tone it down, it's just kind of happened that way. Because yeah, the song goes much higher in the game. Actually, no, it doesn't. It goes about the same. Yeah, I didn't really tone it down that much. I'm just kind of peeking over at reference here just to fact check myself. Make sure I'm not talking out my ass. Right, there's one. No, it's probably, I think that's actually a little too far. It looks like it's kind of thick. You wouldn't want that to be thick. That should be kind of conforming a little bit closer to the skin. So, and that one out here. See here, there's some inconsistencies in certain design elements between the artists. So, for example, in the Jay Lee art, this I think it's actually the same in the game, so I think I'll go with that one. This has like kind of like a pattern on it, like a studded pattern on it, naturally. So since it's in more of the design elements, I'll use this. And then I believe the line along here has it as well. So just kind of make it look like this is like a belt line, because it does actually appear to be what it's supposed to be, but then it's also got this kind of studded pattern on it, which I don't think you'd want that on a belt, unless this is supposed to be. No, it's not supposed to be a belt. There is no belt. Again, this design is just confusing in so many elements. It doesn't really make any sense. They didn't think about it. This was the first pass, I think. There's no way that there were multiple levels that this went through before they came to this. Again, I am kind of doing my best here to work with this and improve upon it in whatever little ways I can to just kind of make this a little less embarrassing. And so another element which doesn't really make a huge amount of sense to me is the kind of the flares. These trousers, whatever type of trousers they are, they're supposed to be like flares, which doesn't make any sense to me really. Again, I don't know who in 2005 was going around with flares. Everyone's going around in parachute pants. God almighty, I don't want to be seeing the parachute pants version of this design. Maybe this was the best version of this design. If this was the best version of this design, I would hate to see the other versions. The ones that they said, no, that might be too much. Good God. That's a frightening thought. No, it's actually inconsistent between designs as well, among other things. Excuse me. It's inconsistent what material these trousers are supposed to be. Because in a few of the designs here, well, in one in particular, they're looking kind of shiny. But then in, like, I mean, in the game, everything is shiny, so that's not really a good way of figuring out what they're supposed to be. Because this is the thing, you need to kind of know what material you're working with in order to try and figure out what kind of lighting you should be applying. Because this is the thing, if they are shiny, then I need to apply more intense lighting. But if they're not supposed to be shiny, then I don't know. Then it's just a normal kind of more matte finish lighting. But yeah, this is the thing, I can't really tell. So I guess I'll just kind of wing it and do whatever seems natural. Alright. Alrighty roo. Now I need to apply some wrinkling. And again, I talked about this with the thing, but whenever you're doing stuff that is kind of baggy, like these appear to be, the kind of folds that you're doing will be different. You're not going to be just applying. You won't be able to apply like stretch marks or anything like that, because that wouldn't really make much sense if there were stretch marks on something that is supposed to be baggy. So you'd be expecting something a little bit more kind of like this, a bit more kind of these folds and stuff like this, where you're seeing kind of these bits of where it's kind of folding along less so than stretching. Again, when it comes to wrinkles, you can just kind of do whatever, so long as it kind of vaguely conforms to the idea that you're trying to show off, because again, you can just kind of do whatever, and then just so long as you're not going too ham, because some of the same principles as skin apply here, where you don't want to kind of oversell it, because if you oversell it, then it'll just look kind of daft. Again, I think I'm starting to lose my flair for the English language here, because I'm just kind of fumbling over myself the same way I was with that bloody one Wolverine drawing. It's happening again. And they're supposed to be baggy, so they should definitely kind of look a little bit more baggy. So again, right, I gotta do the heels, because again, naturally there are heels. At this point, there's not much more I can do but laugh, because it's just it's a bit desperate. Bit desperate. Alright, that's our details, more or less. Again, I think maybe even hips might be a little wide. See, again, I'm getting it feels a little weird, because my brain is tricking me here, saying, oh, I've put the trousers too low, but that's actually is part of the design. So yeah, my brain is kind of telling me here that there's something wrong. But no, that is actually how it looks. May have gone a little overboard with the wrinkling on the trousers, but I feel like some of it will kind of disappear a little bit whenever we get into colouring. So, not too bad. But yeah, now we're on the dots, and I feel like I've kind of exhausted all I have to say about this design at this point, because really I feel like just look at it. Look at it and then make up your mind. Look at it and you'll very quickly come to my point of view. don't mean to come across as an old man in this video whenever I'm talking about this design, but it's a case of where if you're going to do a design which is, I suppose, more provocative, I feel like you should definitely have a reason for it. Because whenever it's on a character, whenever it's on a superhero, where that has no real purpose, it just seems a little odd, a little counterintuitive, you might say. But yeah, it just seems kind of cheap, and just there for no real purpose other than sex appeal. But I mean, again, nothing wrong with sex appeal, but you don't need to be so blunt about it. I feel like most people would appreciate it with a bit more tact when used. But yeah, again, it does just come across as a little classless. But again, I mean, I am talking about Marvel Nemesis, a game which is not exactly remembered for its classiness. You know, this isn't actually a thought which I've had up to this point, but I did kind of forget what the audience of this game is. And the audience in this game is almost certainly pubescent teenage boys. So I mean, this is the thing, this audience does want to see, like, they want to see Venom, and they want to see Spider-Man, and they want to see Wolverine, but they're also old enough to appreciate some boob. So this is the thing, I guess. I mean, it fits with the demographic, but I mean, Jesus Christ. It's still pretty tasteless. I actually forgot that almost all trousers have that line. Because I mean, I even put in the other seams, but oh well. There's my reference you've just seen. Oh well. Who cares? What's next? We're on to colours now. Colours is the next phase. I'm probably going to try and blast through the colours because we're already an hour in. I mean, there's not really many colours going on here. It's mainly just skin and then the same red tone for the most part, with a little bit of silver. So yeah, that's about it really. But yeah, we'll kind of try and fire through this here. Here's something I should probably Yep, we're there. We're there, I can't speak anymore. Here's something I should probably make reference to, and it's that whenever you are drawing or you're doing any kind of art or anything, you're usually working on tendencies. And so one of the tendencies which I'm working on here, which I'm kind of supported by in my reference here, is that usually people with darker hair tend to have paler skin, and I mean the reason for that is usually contrast, or white people who have dark hair at least usually have paler skin, and that's kind of, yeah, again, as I say, it's just kind of contrast wise. Whenever you're drawing, that tends to kind of draw your eye a little bit more. It looks better whenever you do something like that in color, because yeah, it's contrast. It looks good whenever you do stuff like that. Typically, it's visually pleasing to most people. However, this is a tendency. You're working off of the idea that usually these things are the case. However, I mean, you can find somebody who is incredibly tanned with dark hair, and yeah, this is the thing. You are working, as I say, off of tendencies. So it's important to recognize that you shouldn't be drawing every... I mean, yeah, usually I would say it's not a good idea to draw every dark-haired character you do with pale skin, because then it'll look a bit odd that you're typically drawing characters of a particular type very similarly, and again, it's just something to be aware of, I guess, is that it's very easy to kind of fall into the trap of repeating certain things over and over. Yeah, you'll have seen a small cut there just very briefly as I threw in the background here, because I feel like because I'm using paler skin tone, it's kind of easy to end up making or going over the lines, because again it's light color, light background, so this is something I mentioned before. It is kind of very easy to end up accidentally going over the lines whenever you're working with, yeah, as I say, lighter color, lighter background. You know, it's weird to me that you ever even had characters like Elektra in Marvel Nemesis, because it's a case of where, like, I mean, these characters were never that popular. Like, I don't think Elektra was ever that popular. Because she's kind of always just been a supporting character type of deal. And I mean, at the time, it was weird because they were doing like an Elektra movie and stuff. I mean, that movie's awful. I can't imagine why anyone would have ever seen it, let alone me. But yeah, it's a dreadful film. But yeah, this is the thing. It's kind of strange to me that that those characters would have been like, they would have been pushing them so hard at the time. Because again, yeah, they were never really that popular compared to characters like, you know, like Wolverine and stuff like this. So it is just a bit strange to me. Now the question is, does she have blue eyes or green eyes? I'll meet myself halfway in between. I'll make them kind of like a blue-green, because I can't really tell based on any of these images, and I don't remember. So, this is the thing. I don't remember it all, so I'm just gonna improvise. Okay. Right, now on to... Actually, I'll do the silver before I do the red, because there's far more of the silver than there is of the red. Or there's far less of the silver than there is of the red. Alrighty. Now we're going to do the dark red, because there's very little of the dark red. I'm dancing around doing our main red here, but we'll get to it, we'll get to it. Then we could do the shading, and then we're basically finished. And then the rest of it should be kind of the same red. Okay, so red. Okie dokie. Alright, now we've got our colors done. So we've got a few little bits left to do, and that's really about it, to be honest. So we've got to do the shading, and that'll be, well, that's a longer experience. So very quickly, I'll just scribble in a bit of my black, so I have something to, so I have oh, my brain hates me. Yeah, I'll scribble in a little bit of that black so that I can grab it later after we're done. There we go. I got there eventually. I got there eventually. Jesus. Okay, there are darks. Now onto the lights. Boy oh boy, that took a little longer than I expected. The shading on this is a little bit complex again. This is what happens whenever you have baggy stuff, is that you have a little bit more work to do in terms of working with the kind of the baggy, the wrinkles, all this stuff, so it can just take a little longer than you'd like. Again, I'm continuing my fight against the English language here, so hopefully whenever I'm back after finishing the lights, I can speak. It'd be nice. Okay, we've done our we've done our darks and our lights, which means we've got to do a small handful of other things, which includes I need to do a light line, I need to sign it. What else have I to do? And I need to do our gradient maps. Now the gradient maps will probably be reasonably quick. I've already got the texture in here, I could probably even throw it on now, but I won't do it now. I'll sign it first actually. Sign it before I do the light line, because that'll be quick. Turn down that, turn that down, and then just ever so gently. Okay, this is larger than I thought it was. Anyways, okay, so next on the agenda, light line, which I'll try and be quick about. Okay, alright. I did say I was going to be quick about the light line, but I took a little longer than I expected. Anyways, oh, now you can throw on the texture, and yep, it does the same thing it normally does. Okay, so now we're going to do our gradient maps, and this may take a moment. So, first things first, I'm going to grab the gradient map from Wolverine, which is this one. Just grab it and then bring it over here. And so this is our ugly green one, which, you know what, it doesn't look the worst. Doesn't look like the worst thing I've ever seen. However, there is definitely a better gradient map for this task, for this particular image, because I mean it washes out our reds a little too much, and again, we want to keep our reds looking alright, because I mean again, with a character whose main color is red, you're going to want the reds to pop. You're not going to want them to look kind of weird. So, weird and washed out. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new gradient map that does just that. That is going to make our reds pop. So we're going to want a kind of blood red as our darkest. Like a dark, proper deep blood red. And then as our lightest, we're going to say maybe get an orangey red, I think. Something like that, like a salmony colour like this. Yeah, we might experiment a little bit. And then in between, we're going to get a kind of a pinky red that is kind of the duller colour. A bit more of a maroon in there. And that should work. This is going to pretty heavily skew it to be red, which is why I'm trying to bring this up to being maybe a bit more orange. And maybe bring this down to be... No, it's about as good as I want it to be, and I do want this to be kind of the pinky colour. Maybe make it even a little pinker. So, that's that gradient map. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at it in overlay. It turns our city orange, but put it on soft light and it'll make it, yeah, it'll, if we turn it down a little bit, it'll still be green, yeah. So on 62%, that brings out our reds a hell of a lot more. Like, let's get in and have a look here. So yeah, on this, it's kind of skewing some things to be a bit more red, like our skin is a little bit more red. But on this, our skin is kind of green and all the reds are very washed out. But here, our reds are a little bit more juicy, I suppose, than they were before. So I mean, even down here, you look, it's muted, and that's not great. We don't want muted colors. Muted colors are the worst thing you can have in these types of things. So that was kind of the very brief point I wanted to make again, because this is just the recurring thing, is I'm trying to find a gradient map that, instead of unifying them across the board with some kind of ugly ass green which would fit the tone of the game, I'm trying to find a gradient map that fits them individually so that it looks good for each individual drawing. And I mean, we have the background and stuff to keep them unified. So I mean, you don't need the gradient map here to keep them unified. And again, there's probably a decent enough gradient map that would work for all of them, but the issue is just trying to find that on an individual basis is tricky. Because again, if I was drawing them all on one big sheet, that would be another issue. But or that would be a little easier to think of. But it's a case of we're trying to do that on an individual basis is kind of tricky. But yeah, I think that's it. I think we're good. So what did we discuss? We went through basically this design. We touched a little bit on the kind of stuff of where I was unsure about. We talked a little bit about hair, which was fun. Lighting hair as well is kind of fun because you can get these kind of, you can make just white hair around there and it'll look right. Just make your lines around there white, just kind of copy the same lines, and there you go. You've got a good lit hair. But anyways, yeah, those are the kind of main bullet points that we touched on. We talked about my gradient maps thing again, which we're going to continue throughout the whole series, the mini series, I guess, of these Marvel Nemesis drawings. But yeah, I think that's it. I think we're good. If you like the video, do what you normally do. And that is it. Bye bye bye.